All right, how you doing? We hopping into First Peter chapter 3, this review number 5. First things first, let me make sure you like the video. 8's full screen, scroll a little bit, like it. Full screen back up. You feel me. So we left off talking about not rendering evil for evil and how that when people may question you about your faith, sometimes they're not doing it in a good sense, right? They may be questioning it in a way it's just to make you sound dumb, right? And so when not rendering evil for evil, what we do is he's basically telling us, Peter, in this letter, that we should be looking to Jesus as our example and basing our response off after that. And as the Prince of Peace, he's telling us respond with peace, right? And it sounds easy, but it's really not. But in the spirit, things become easy. My yoke is easy, my burden is light. So he says we contrary-wise, bless, knowing that we are thereunto called to bless, right? That we shall inherit a blessing, right? So we're called into this suffering. Therefore, we should bless, because blessed are those who suffer for the sake of righteousness, right? Knowing that we are thereunto called for this suffering and persecution, we should therefore inherit a blessing. And then in verse 10, he actually goes on to quote Psalm 34, or some verses in Psalm 34. I don't really know. Pastor Paul didn't bring it up, but he said this is Psalm 34 verses, right? For he that will love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil and his lips that they speak no guile, right? And I'm just going to pull up the other translation for what guile is, because I think it's deceit, but for he that would love life and see good days, right? And we get this everlasting joy, right? The peace that passes understanding from the Lord. So if we're gonna love life and see those good days, we must put our tongue away from evil, right? Not rendering this evil for evil when we're faced with these type of questions, right? But yeah, guile is deceit. And then, speak no deceit. The Bible tells us, don't be deceitful. Don't bear false witness. Comes from the Old Testament, and the New Testament tells us put away all manner of deceit, or stray far from it, right? So if you love life, see good days, keep your tongue from that. Don't speak deceit. Let him eschew evil and do good, and let him seek peace and ensue it. And we definitely get a new translation for that, because I get the gist of it, and I'm sure you do too, hopefully. But at the same time, what is eschewing and ensuing is probably, turn away from evil, seek peace and pursue it, right? So he's telling us that example after Jesus, seek that peace and pursue it, turn away from evil, right? And in verse 12, for the eyes of the Lord are over the righteous, right? He's constantly protecting us. He's constantly defending us. His spirit is one with our spirit. Therefore, we know he is with us in these times, right? The eyes of the Lord are over the righteous. His ears are open unto their prayers, right? But we're told in the same chapter, stuff can hinder our prayers, right? And sometimes we're told, ask and you shall receive, but those things must be asked within his will. But like we saw earlier, some things can hinder your prayers, right? And as heirs together of the grace, husbands dwell with them according to knowledge, give honor to your wife as the weaker vessel, being heirs of the grace, that your prayers not be hindered, right? So there are things that can hinder your prayers, right? His ears are open, but there's things that you can do to hinder the fact that he's going to listen or not, right? Because obviously Jesus is our mediator, as we see in Hebrews. He's bringing this stuff before the Lord, whose ears are open, but the prayer may be hindered based on things that you do, right? So what's this, what I'm saying? And then whether you receive it is whether it's according to God's will or not, right? But the face of the Lord is against them that do evil. And I don't really know what this means practically in terms of what that means, but at this, because we can't say he's not killing everybody. That's evil, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that his face is against them or whatever, but we can check the commentary and go down there. So he didn't necessarily say it in the commentary, but he did mention the rewards, right? The rewards of doing good are oftentimes better than the rewards of doing evil, right? And that could be socially, that could be, but don't get it twisted. Doing evil renders a lot of, I can't even say good rewards, because rendering evil isn't going to give you a good reward, but it will bring you a reward on this earth, right? Because this earth is under the control of the prince of the evil, right? The evil one. So doing evil can render the things that you want. It can bring the things you want, right? Obviously, you do good things, it's going to bring the good rewards. If you do evil things, it's going to bring the evil rewards. But the human heart is deceitful. Satan is the father of lies. So he's going to reward deceit with what he seems pleasurable. And money is the root of all kinds of evil. So he can reward you with money. He can reward you for power. He can reward you with status, right? And I seen a thing that was saying that that's mostly what things come from, right? Money, power, or sex. They said, right? A lot of issues just stem over those three things. And money's the root of all kinds of like issues. Power can bring you money. Money can buy sex. Power can bring it. So it's like those. That's the trio of, I don't want to say evil things, because all things were made good, but humans perverted them. Right? Humans perverted them to do a lot worse than they were initially intended for. So let me go on to verse 13. And who is he that will harm you if you be followers of that which is good? And he's basically, Pastor Paul made a funny joke. He was like, this is basically like saying, who's going to pull you over for speeding if you're always driving a speed limit? And it's like, you might not get pulled over for speeding. You can still get pulled over. He didn't actually even bring that up. That's just what I'm thinking of off the top of my head, is you can still get pulled over even if it's not for speeding and you're always driving a speed limit, right? Why do bad things happen to good people? Things just happen. Right? So who's going to harm you if you be followers of that which is good? Funnily enough, this sounds like a good thing. Who's going to harm you if you're always doing good? Like, yeah. Who's going to harm me if I'm always doing good? Until you realize that Jesus said, because they hated you, they're going to hate me. And was Jesus not doing the goodest? To use an imaginative word, right? Was Jesus not doing the best that we could have possibly done, even though he said his followers are going to do much more than me? But at the same time, perfect human being hated and being killed. If we're going to do greater than him, are they going to do worse to us? Question mark. I don't know. But I think it's supposed to be a positive statement. But in the end, we still know that there are people that are going to harm us, persecute us for being followers of that which is good. Life ain't all sunshines and rainbows. And that's exactly what Jesus told us. But when it comes to that, I think it's more so going after that notion of fear, which was also present in the same chapter, right? We're not supposed to have that fear because perfect love casts out fear. And the perfect love, where's that perfect love coming from if not from our perfect creator, right? And verse 14, if you suffer for righteousness' sake, happy are ye. And be not afraid, right? There's that fear. Be not afraid of their terror, neither be troubled. Because we were called to that. Just like I said in the chapter, we're called to that. Jesus said we're called to that. He said it's going to happen, right? So be happy for it. Blessed are those who suffer. Blessed are those who... There's another one that's usually on the front of my mind, but I can't think of it right now. I'm actually very tired. But regardless, rejoice in that. Rejoice in your sufferings, the Bible says. And here also, rejoice always, it also says. And pray always, right? And be not afraid of their terror. Don't be afraid of them, neither be troubled. And then it was around over here, verse 15. But sanctify the Lord God in your hearts, and be always ready to give an answer to every man that asks you a reason of your hope that is in the meekness, that is in you with meekness and fear. Right? So when people see you, Pastor Paul said, how are people gonna ask you about your faith? What's gonna make them want to ask you about your faith? They're either gonna have to see it, or they're gonna have to hear about it from you. But what's gonna make them curious? He said, if you're always happy and hopeful, somebody might come up and ask you, why are you so happy and hopeful? And then you get to tell them the gospel. Or somebody sees you're always nice and not repaying evil with evil and faced with all these difficult situations and you're happy through the most of it. Why? How? Because I got Jesus, man. But if you're all doom and gloom and sad and like we're gonna die, it's so pointless, and no one's gonna want to ask you. But that word for defend, he says, right? Or ask you a reason. Wait, always be ready to give an answer. That word is apologia in the Greek, which is where we get over for apologetics, right? Using reason and stuff. And he's like, our faith is reasonable, right? You look at the evidence for the Bible and you look at the evidence for the historicity alone of the New Testament at the least, and then take the fact that that culture was built on a further group of people. And you could take stuff like, personally, I've looked into the Siloam Tunnel, right? You can find Jesus's actual grave. You can find the tombs of David in them. You can go to Egypt and you can find Joseph's tomb where their bodies weren't, and all that. The 12 of the graves, and you're like, this stuff is real. Or not Joseph. Yeah, no, well, Joseph, yeah, but this stuff is real. This stuff is real, and it takes the spirit to understand it and discern it, but it's real, and our faith has reason. So there's a reason to give a reason, right? People are gonna see us, and they're gonna see you with that peace and that happiness, and they're gonna be like, "Yo, how?" And you're gonna be like, "Jesus and the Bible." They're gonna be like, "Huh?" And then you come out with your reason, which should be exemplified through you, which is that hope and all that. But if they need more than that to see, right, or at least to sow a seed in them, then you can bring further evidence to them, which isn't saying everybody should go study apologetics, so to speak, but I think that it's good that you have a reason, right? You always have an answer ready to give to somebody who may question you. And there's beauty in that, because that casts out our fear, right? Oh, it's going to be the end of the video. Hope you guys have yourself a great rest of your day. Peace.